everyone. Welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast, where we explore our shared love for watching and discussing movies recorded in the late after-work hours, often in lieu of a good night's rest. I'm Madeline.
I'm Julian.
And I'm Emilio. The three of us are colleagues at a Midtown Manhattan music school. Yes, music is what brings us together, but movies are what keep us together, talking at the end of the night. So we've created some order to this ongoing trend by recording these conversations, considering an overarching theme while we cycle through 5 unique guidelines for engagement.
You can email us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. Seriously, we would love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for updates, highlights, clips, and other visual supplements to the audio we record at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod.
In addition to these main episodes, we record and release bonus one-off episodes as we see fit. While we do this, you, the listener, can count on the three of us doing what we've grown to love, forgoing sleep for a discussion about movies every other week.
And this week, we begin a new cycle of Oscar-worthy rom-coms with a category we call Viewunanimous, where we revisit a movie the three of us have all seen before and see if our initial opinions still stand, if they've changed, or if discussing the movie will make us see things we didn't see before.
And this film with which we begin our new cycle is also a milestone for us in another sense, in that it is the first film made and produced in France that we are covering on this podcast. And this film is Amelie, the 2001 film directed by Jean-Pierre Jeunet, written by Guillaume Laurent, and very memorably starring Audrey Tautou and Matthew Kassovitz in its lead roles.
Yes, and we've had a lot of guests on this podcast, but I can tell you that for me personally, this is a true highlight. I have known this guest for about as long as this movie that we're talking about today has been out in the world. We were in the same year and met as freshmen in high school on Chicago's South Side. We always got along well, but our friendship really blossomed during our junior and senior years when it was becoming clear that both of us had a pretty strong love for film. We even did our own independent study where we helmed our own documentaries. I made one on independent video stores in the Chicago area, and she made hers about the rise and fall of a band that had formed at our high school. And we didn't plan this, but both of us went to NYU with film as our expected degrees, hers in film and TV and mine in cinema studies. This is where, in our freshman and sophomore years, we formed a bond that is still there to this day. Late night hangs, very frank and open conversations about our lives, our studies, our stumbles and dreams, seeing the occasional movie in theaters. This was when I knew that I had made a friend for life. And as the years went by and I pivoted away from film and towards performance, music, and education, a very terrific career in film and TV was getting underway for her. She was a writer and regular performer in college humor videos and directed a number of well-received short films, notably Lucia Before and After, which won the jury prize for U.S. fiction at the Sundance Film Festival in 2017. She's worked very steadily in television, directing episodes of Shrill, AP Bio, Interior Chinatown, and Just Like That, Shrinking, Mixed-ish, and She-Hulk Attorney at Law, just to name a few. She's a recipient of the 2020 NYC Women's Fund for Media, Music, and Theater, and out on these streets as an ambassador for the American Film Showcase. At the moment, she is hot off her feature film debut, We Strangers, which is a very thoughtful, well-crafted film I would recommend everyone listening to seek out. On top of all these professional successes, she's one of the biggest-hearted people I've ever had the pleasure to know. We really have only seen each other here and there in the years post-college, but every time I do, I feel like no time has passed, and there's this mix of excitement and peace there, the kind that you get when you see someone who knew a pure, less world-weary version of yourself, living in a world that is wide open to you, and for a while, you get to feel and see yourself that way too. To weave this film into this, it's much like what you feel coming back to an old relic from childhood. Happy? Absolutely. Sad? I would say more reflective, nostalgic. You bet. I can't wait to get into this conversation and see what else might come up. Anu Valia, welcome to the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast.
Welcome.
Okay.
We're all bawling now.
So I'm really trying to tone it down. I was on the edge of losing it. You know, you hear podcasts and you hear people have these beautiful introductions and they're like, that was the nicest thing I've ever heard. But Emilio, when you were sharing about, hi everybody, I'm a new Valia, and when you were sharing about our childhoods and seeing each other as like seeing the less world weary, like that is exactly right. Like we have shared so much, and I'm brought back immediately to our times, freshman, sophomore year of college at NYU, clinging to each other like lifeboats and being so
Definitely.
You know, like everything was so new, but I knew I had you there. And I know that so much time has passed since we've seen each other. And for the people listening, we got back in touch because Emilio came out to see the premiere of my movie, We Strangers, in New York in August or September. And
September, yeah.
I was just my dad was with me, and my dad and Emilio are buds. And I just couldn't. It was the thing I took away the most. I told everybody when I came back, it was the thing that really, really stuck with me. So to be back here, really just to reconnect, because you mean so much to me. And it's so beautiful because you guys all became such dear friends, talking about movies, and talking about movies is my favorite thing to do in the world. So to reconnect, to do my favorite thing is a real honor. And I can't wait to talk about this movie that is very nostalgic, which is a good thing.
I would say so for sure.
Yeah, what a great choice for your reunion film discussion.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it worked out about as well as we could hope. And let's see, maybe the conversation will bear that out.
I think another shout out to make here is that, I mean, I won't speak for you, Madeline, but for me personally, the build up to this experience can be credited to a few months back. And Emilio, you told us about that screening you went to of We Strangers, but also that we recently had the editor of that film, James Kodayanis, as a guest to talk about Black Christmas too. So credits also due to him for the hype that has led to you being here anew.
And isn't he such a kindred spirit? I knew
like he was
absolutely
lovely.
Exactly meant for this. I just have to say I'm so grateful to be here. And Emilio, I feel like this podcast is like my time to tell you that you're one of the most important people in my life. And we just grow up, and because, like, you know, life just kind of takes you in different directions.
Yeah.
And it's only because of that we haven't talked in so long. And so to watch this movie with you in mind and with this podcast in mind it reminded me of like when we were kids again. And I'm really excited to talk about it, because I also think, as someone that went to film school, Amelie is a movie that is like such a film kid movie. It was so embraced in a way that started to kind of fold in on itself and become a bit of its own tail. It became very staid, even though we'll talk about it. But I feel like when you watch it, you're like, oh, this is the most creative thing. It's so shitty that this became like trite in people's eyes, because this movie
it's not the movie's fault.
It's so creative. Every sentence is so creative.
I feel like when I was in college, that movie, because I went to college in the mid 2010s, that movie at that time was Whiplash, where it was kind of like, this is what all like the film kids want to try to recreate. Yeah, I totally get that same thing about there being a movie that by no fault of its own just becomes the thing that all the film kids flock to.
It was like the Amelie, and then a little bit later Wes Anderson. I feel like the start of the conversation like the start of the conversation of Manic Pixie Dream Girl that became overly placed in thought frames, which is funny because everything I'm saying is like conversation around the art, and the art itself is really beautiful and really unique. And like that's all that matters, is art that has a really fresh voice. And sometimes conversation is not the stuff that lasts, it's the art that lasts. So
that's a great way to put it. I love that,
because we forget, and it's like the next generation comes, they have no idea, they don't know any of that context. Like even Oscar winners of 40 years ago, we come to them just like totally new movies, or like and it's so nice to see this movie now without any of that stuff that I feel like I had before. So
yeah,
That's
actually,
awesome.
to the point you just made, I feel like that's a really great, because we're beginning a new episode cycle here. I feel like that's a really great introduction to kind of the reason why, as we are now entering awards season, we chose to talk about a bunch of romantic comedies that have been lauded as such. And, that's because romantic comedies as a genre, it's not like it's dead, but it is a little bit out of vogue right now. I don't think there's anyone who'd
Some
say
life support, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone who would say we're living in a golden age of rom-coms at the moment, and yet there are all these different movies of the genre that are canonized in film history, whether it be due to winning Oscars or equivalent awards or just because of their general reputation. And I feel like this cycle for us is it's a chance to deep dive into this genre. Maybe it's not necessarily to understand why it's not in vogue now, but just to appreciate it.
I love
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the movie that we're talking about today, we just want to make clear, is Amelie. And I know this sounds nuts, but for years, whenever I would think of this movie, I would hear a song that would just echo in my head, much like it does when you actually hear it. And it's the one that goes, Amelie, 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 Amelie. So do not confuse 2001's Amelie with Lil Wayne's 2008 stream of conscious hip hop touchstone, Amelie.
I really wish
Very
I had
good.
bet on this. I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
I did not.
I
No, I
gotta
didn't
say
see
though,
that
like
coming.
there are some lines from Amelie that I think work well, considering Amelie. Like there's the like a million here, a million there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely, she weaves
She
her way
is
into
here
people's
and
lives.
there.
Absolutely,
Everywhere. That's true.
She really is. And considering all of the ASMR love that this movie has, I think that
You're right.
Amelie would really appreciate the sound of "Pop 'em like Orville Redenbacher."
Yeah.
Absolutely. She'd be sticking her hand in the
In the
popcorn
unpopped
kernels.
In the,
Corn.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So don't confuse
Wow.
Amelie with Amelie.
Well, this is a tough introduction to follow.
100%. You
But
go
along
ahead.
more conventional lines to, I guess, the cinephile, Amelie, being a movie that is set in Paris, that has to do with love life, features a lot of lovely French interiors, and begins with the letters A and M, is not to be confused with Amour.
Right.
Yeah, the Michael Haneke film from 2012.
Different vibe.
Wow.
Very different
Yeah,
vibe.
different vibe.
But, on those surface level details, potentially there to be confused with. Also the fact that was also a very abundantly nominated and awarded movie
True
the year
that.
that it came out. So yeah, not to be confused with.
Yeah. I'm going to zag back a different direction. And I'm going to say that although there is a globetrotting gnome in this movie, this film should not be confused with the Travelocity commercials that were airing. And I have to say, I stole this from my parents. I was at my parents' house this week. I'll get into this later, but this is one of my dad's all-time
good.
favorite movies. So I was rewatching this with my parents, and they're the ones that were like, "Do you remember those Travelocity commercials with the gnome? I'm sure they stole this from Amelie."
Shout out Richard and Kay. That's a great poll.
Don't confuse
Yeah.
them.
Thank
Also-
God you clarified.
Does Travelocity still exist?
Good question.
I don't know. We
Yeah.
have computers with internet access. We could
Can you
confirm this
imagine
real
meeting
quick.
somebody and then being like, I work for Travelocity? Like, can you
There is a
imagine?
Travelocity.com, and if you go there, the gnome is still on the home page.
No.
Okay. All the more
right
reason to
there.
not confuse the Travelocity homepage.
He's in the ocean.
Oh my God, you are absolutely correct.
It's more like the gnome page, right?
Yes, more like the gnome page.
Yeah.
Guys, they stole that from Amelie.
100%.
I think they did.
Oh,
Yeah,
well,
that's
How much of a
This
phenomenon
is why
was.
we do this segment anew.
Yeah.
Because
So
you know
We're revealing the
it's
dark truths.
easy. Exactly, it's easy to confuse these things. Culturally, there is
Yeah.
there's a lot of cachet. I think from both of these directions. So
Yeah, and you don't mean the movie Cachet, which is
No.
also directed
Also
by Michael
Haneke,
Haneke.
yes.
Not to be
I got a note on that later, by the way.
Shares an actor with this movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also would say that this film is not to be confused with Chocolat,
Yeah.
starring
Yes.
Juliette Binoche, Johnny Depp,
Mhm.
yeah, Judi Dench. This is a movie that came out a year before Amelie that I would say whet the public's appetite for these kinds of films, which are like based in France,
Yes.
young woman in an eatery of
yeah.
sorts. It exerts her good-natured influence over the patrons and city folk.
Yeah, I like that.
Totally.
I really
And-
do feel like people have confused those two movies, so I do think that was necessary to say.
Yep.
I feel like people might also confuse Amelie, given its setting and some of the phonetics of that character's name, with Emily in Paris.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yeah.
man, of course.
Because I feel like you go into Netflix, typing in Amelie, you type in Emily, all of a sudden you're watching 4 seasons of Emily in Paris. It can
Yeah,
happen real quick.
Amelie
Real fast.
isn't on any streaming services. So if you're typing in Amelie and you get really tired and your thumbs are tired and you've been searching for too long, then maybe you'll give up and watch Emily in Paris rather than checking out Amelie from the New York Public Library, because Julian already has the copy from the New York Public Library.
Yeah. And I wore
Hopefully
a
there are
green shirt
multiple.
and red socks today for the
Oh,
occasion.
look, you're matching.
Yes.
Very nice.
As much as I can. That's about it.
Lovely. So, Julian, what is Amelie about?
So, sparing us of a few very specific details that truly begin this film, Amélie Poulain is born in 1974 to parents named Raphael and Amandine, who go about their lives with specific habits that shape the upbringing of their daughter. Registering a distance from her father while small, Amélie's increased heart rate when her doctor father performs a checkup on her leads to her parents assuming she has a heart defect and thus deciding to keep her out of regular schools and homeschool her. Amelie takes to her imagination to entertain herself, and sadly, as a child, has any hope of growing up with a sibling dashed when her mother is accidentally killed by a body falling from the Notre Dame Cathedral.
Oof.
Continuing to grow up in a relatively withdrawn existence, we fast forward to age 23 and find Amelie as a server at a cafe in the Paris neighborhood of Montmartre. Amidst her regular comforts and habits, Amelie lives in a relatively open-ended life that gains a new sense of purpose when her reflex reaction to hearing of the death of Princess Diana leads her to drop a perfume stopper, which rolls across the floor, only to dislodge a tile from her bathroom wall that then reveals an old box of keepsakes hidden inside said wall. Amelie then sets out on a quest to find the former owner of this box of keepsakes and return them, and in the process makes the acquaintance of an elderly neighbor named Raymond Dufayel, and continues to depend on his sage advice as the fervor of her initial efforts spurs her on to play pranks on a mean grocer, engineer a romance between two regulars at the cafe where she works, and inch towards a romance of her own with a similarly quirky local named Nino.
Love it.
Good job.
Oh my God.
That's definitely the movie. You know, Dougie, my partner, he did not rewatch this with me. He's seen it before, but it's been a while. And he was like, what's Amelie about? And I struggled. I don't think I was as effective as your premise description was.
Thank you. A bit of an intimidating movie to try to summarize, though, because it's very easy to get caught up in the little details of this movie.
No, it's sprawling.
Yeah.
I feel like my head was on a swivel trying to keep track of who was doing what, and
Particularly in like the first 20 minutes of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
there's a lot of
I've had to watch
backstory.
it twice this week just because it can feel kind of overstimulating, I think, in the beginning.
Totally.
Which I think is by design.
Well, I appreciate that you mention the sort of prologue of the movie because there's so much information in the beginning when she's a child, which is only like the first 10 minutes. And then we meet Audrey Tautou as Amelie, but her childhood is completely the reason she is the way she is.
Yeah.
So, because I think it's easy as the movie goes on, you get so caught up in the rest of the movie. What I think this movie does a great job, and your description did a great job of doing, is like it is connected to the fact that she never really got the love that she wanted from her father. She never had the companionship of a sibling that she wanted. Like all those things are connected to this really important. It was sort of like Up. It's like this very important prologue that isn't just cute. It's really important to who she is. And I think the film does a good job of like sticking true to this like backstory of this character, because that's why she's so lonely. But anyway, I'm very impressed with that.
Yeah, because her isolation as a child absolutely carries over into adulthood, and she doesn't have this large social circle. She's slowly building these relationships with people who she encounters throughout the film, but she is so used to being isolated because of her background.
Yeah, maybe I'll elaborate a bit on this as we go on, but this wasn't my first time with the movie, but reflecting on it as I've prepared for this conversation, I mean, I don't know about you, Anu, but I am an only child, and my two co-hosts are not. And so like that, I don't know how it hits for the rest of you, but for me as an only child watching this movie, there's a lot that hits very close to home despite it being set across the ocean.
Wow. I grew up with a brother, so I didn't feel that, but I'm so curious if the director was an only child, because it feels so connected. I feel like my memory of the movie, it's so easy to remember this movie kind of in details and not in like the story of it, even though the story is super sound.
Absolutely.
Like, the story is completely sound. Like the movie moves like a snake, but this idea of loneliness, and that is specific to when you've grown up without really anybody your age around you who understands you, is so seminal to the film. Like it's so ingrained in the movie that I'm so curious, like what the filmmaker's background is. Cause I just was like, you can't write this and have it actually connect if you don't have any idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Julian, you were getting at this a little bit, but this is a movie that the three of us main co-hosts have all seen before. Anu, we'll start with you. We talked a little bit up front, I think, about some of the backstory that you have with Amelie, but can you tell us a little bit more about how you first came to this movie?
You know what's so funny? I don't remember when I first saw this movie. I remember seeing it and being blown away. I'm sure it was when I was young. Like, I'm sure my dad showed me this movie when I was, because it came out in 2001, you said? No, 2000.
Yeah, 2001.
So I'm sure I saw it around when it came out, but I don't remember. What I remember is that I loved it, absolutely loved it. And then in time going to film school, it was between people trying to copy the elements of the movie and doing it poorly, like taking the elements and turning it into something that is now called like twee or cute or quirky, and then seeing people write about it and talking about it, just hearing about it all the time and like seeing all the bad imitations, that I think it started to kind of change in my head. And I was like, I kind of thought to revisit it, I was like, okay, I'm going to revisit this like quirky twee movie. And even though I don't like thinking of films like that, I just kind of was like ready to watch it, but I did not expect to feel, I think, exactly how I felt when I first saw it.
Yeah.
I love
this
that.
story of this woman, I mean, this is my interpretation because there's so much going on, of this woman who is feeling so lonely and she's trying to create magic. I mean, her friend says it, but like she's trying to create magic in the world for everyone else, but it's because she's so scared of feeling close to anybody and she doesn't want to be hurt at all. And now it's like being in my 30s, I relate to that so much, and I completely feel for her, and I loved every single choice in the movie. Like as an art film, like there's not one slow scene. Like everything she does has purpose. Every time she picks up a coffee cup, it's because she's going to spill it on somebody to get them to be like, there's no choice she makes that doesn't have action. And I think a lot of movies that imitate this, they have that lonely character and they don't do anything. So those movies are boring or stagnant, but this character is constantly on the move with purpose. And I just couldn't believe how like fast it moved.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
it's a very kinetic
Jean-Pierre
movie.
Jeunet has talked a lot about being, like, by his own admission, a control freak. He said he did like 18 drafts of this movie. He storyboards to hell. Like, he has every single detail planned out in advance. And I think that is why this is such a tight movie. Because he knows exactly what he wants out of every single scene going into it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I'm not surprised at all. Like, even in one shot, you see what's going on and the plot is being moved forward. Like there's one shot that's pretty innocuous, but she's just sees how shitty the grocery store owner is being. And then it's just one shot where the camera just pushes in as she enters like a locksmith shop.
Yeah.
Like the camera pushes in on the door. She goes in, the door closes and it says keys cut while you wait. And it's just
Right.
like one shot and you're like, oh, she's getting the key duplicated. And then the next thing is she's going to go into his apartment. And you're just like, every shot tells you something. Or even when she's like staining or dyeing the letter that she is going to, like, God, there's so much in this movie.
The forging letter.
Yeah, the
She's
forging
a letter to her neighbor, pretending to be her neighbor's long lost love is the best you guys
Right.
could describe. There's so much more there. But it's like one shot and there's just all the tea bags around and you're like, oh, she's aging. Like every shot was so economical. That's so hard to do. It takes so much planning and such a knowledge of what you're doing. And I think going to film school and seeing a lot of people try to copy that poorly, my memory of the movie was like, ugh, this is just like all the stuff people can easily copy, but it doesn't really mean anything. But he was so thoughtful. Yeah, I was just so deeply impressed at how creative. Like every single second was full of creativity.
Yeah, even when she is still, which is not often, but a couple of times she's like in front of the television.
Yes.
And it's either like she's seeing stock footage that she ends up like filming to give to her neighbor, or it's a film in itself where it's like, you know, kind of breaking the reality a little bit and it's her in the television. She's like watching herself. It's like even those moments where she is still as a character still means so much.
Yeah.
I'll jump in a little bit and just share that I do remember watching this movie when it was a new release. I think it was around 2001, 2002 or so. And I remember it getting some buzz. I do remember watching it with my parents. This is an interesting movie because I think I was just old enough to get the vibe of this movie, but I don't think I was old enough to really appreciate what was really going on.
Yeah.
And it was kind of hard for me to really keep track of it. Also, another thing, I was probably 14 at the time. I don't think I was quite yet initiated with the like, cool, a movie's got subtitles, no problem type of energy. I don't remember what this movie was about as much as I remember what this movie made me feel.
Yeah.
Which is the movie made me feel very light. It kind of felt like this giant hug that the movie was like, it's all good. You're good. You're going to be great. And coming back to it now, I was seeing a little bit of like Wes Anderson, you mentioned, but I was also seeing like Danny Boyle a lot in this. And I was even seeing some like Guy Ritchie where it was like whip pan, fast kind of cutty stuff. It's a sweet and interesting film, but it also kind of moves like an action movie. It's kind of fun.
Yeah.
It's a surprisingly deep and layered movie about like self-determinism and altruism, which I think are two very evergreen themes. And so I had such a good time coming back to this movie.
Yeah.
Wow. Well said.
I am in a news camp where I don't remember much about seeing this for the first time, but as I briefly said, this is one of my dad's all-time favorite movies. He loves this movie. And I knew of this movie more because I was 9 when this came out, so I was too young to see it at the time. But my dad definitely saw it. Possibly my parents may have seen it in theaters. I should have asked. But he watched it a lot. And it was just sort of around our house. And I think when I kind of got to the age where I was old enough that they felt like I could kind of understand it and appreciate it, then I imagine that's when I watched it for the first time. But I don't think I've seen it since I was a teenager. So like you said, Anu, like revisiting this in my 30s is just really, I think, interesting to have originally visited it at a time when I was much younger than she is. Julian, when we did Frances Ha, you were like, I saw this when I was a lot younger than her, and then now I'm watching it when I am her age. Obviously, now I'm, 10 years older than Amelie is, but to have gone through that point in my life is, I think, really interesting to see it from the other side.
That's so well said, because that's really true. So much of it is about deep, deep human love and connection with the people around you. And what also first love feels like, the fear of rejection, fear of being alone. Those are just like not things I was familiar with when I first saw it, but I think I could appreciate it just because it like moved and was interesting.
It's
and
like
she
a
was really
beautiful
nice person.
movie.
Totally. And I loved how nice she was because I really liked movies where people were kind to each other. And so I really liked it. It was so creative. But you're totally right. Watching it now, so much older than her, I kind of wish I saw this movie in my 20s, but maybe I'd feel too close to her. her.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh, I was her. Like when she when they're in the cafe and she doesn't talk to him. And that one shot, 'cause like this movie is surprising VFX. And she like melts into a puddle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
hasn't felt that? I was like, oh!
Yeah. Well, on the note of watching this movie as a 20-something,
Yes.
by the time this episode drops, I will have just turned 29. And yeah. So I'm the newest arrival to this movie. I only saw it for the first time about 5 months before this recording.
Beautiful.
July 18th to be exact, because I remember those things.
He really does. He did not, I guarantee you he did not have to look that up.
It's weird.
I didn't.
In a beautiful way, but it's weird.
I mean, Letterboxd helps, but...
Oh, right.
No, but I remember it pretty clearly, though, because I was lucky enough to experience this movie for the first time in a theater.
Wow.
At the Angelica Film Center, to be exact. I think I don't know if there was much of an occasion for them showing it. I have a feeling it's kind of one of those movies where maybe if they're like a little low on the roster of new releases and they need a re-release to show, they probably just run that from time to time.
Yeah. Fire up Amelie. That would definitely bring them out.
Pleaser.
Yeah, I mean, especially at the Angelica for sure.
Yeah.
But I was only 4 years old when this movie came out. But what's crazy is that I feel like I knew this movie was important even in that early childhood headspace, because I remember the poster. I remember walking around and seeing the poster.
Very iconic.
Yeah, not even outside of movie theaters. I feel like I just saw it in some store window in Park Slope where I grew up. And so I kind of had it in my head for a long time as an example of a really important movie that I was late to. It was on, I had a little list on my phone of other things. I was kind of late to get to Easy Rider as well, or The Exorcist, movies like that, just canonical movies. And I was already a fan of Jean-Pierre Jeunet. The first film of his that I saw when I was actually a teenager at the time was this movie called Micmacs, which is an action comedy that came out. I saw it when it was released in 2010, I think, also at the Angelica Film Center. But
Flex.
I don't. Yeah. Yes.
What day?
What day? Okay, I don't remember what day, but
he will try. He'll take 10 seconds and give it an honest go.
Season.
I can tell you it was a weekend, the July of that year.
That's so crazy. So if you guessed, you'd be probably right. That's so nuts. That's so cool.
I feel like it was close to July 4th. The vibe was in the air at that time.
Unreal.
I don't remember very much about that movie, but I enjoyed it. But then the movie that really, in adulthood, made me a fan of Jean-Pierre Jeunet is his debut feature, Delicatessen.
Yeah. Which
similarly showed in restoration at the IFC Center around 2 years ago.
Flex.
But that movie, I don't know if anyone else here has seen Delicatessen. I implore you to check it out. It is a great, great movie.
It's on the watch list.
Same.
When we did our Criterion gift exchange a few weeks ago, amongst the options I was considering, should I find them in the store, the two that I had in my head for you, Emilio, one was With Noel and I.
Yep.
Which I gave you.
Yep.
And if it was not that, I might have chosen Delicatessen.
Oh, see, either one of those I think would have been very welcome.
Yeah. But a major difference between Delicatessen and Amelie is that is a darker movie.
Yeah.
And so Amelie, once I had an opportunity to see it, I knew I was going to like it. I was pleased with the familiarity of the pace of the movie, the kineticism with which Jean-Pierre Jeunet directs. But I think I was honestly pretty surprised by the emphasis on isolation and how prominently that figures into the movie. So I think the introduction of Amelie was the part that maybe most met my expectations going in. I was really impressed, though, to see Jean-Pierre Jeunet's take on something that is a little more, as he might put it, based in reality. Delicatessen's more of a fantasy. And here we are talking about Amelie a few months later. I knew as soon as this suggestion came up that I was all in for this movie.
That was so well said.
Thank you.
I think what's really beautiful is there's movies I loved when I was a kid or in high school or early in college or whatever, but I'm so surprised when I return to them how much more I get. It's just like any good book or anything. You're like, man, there's so much more to get here. And maybe that's just time. Just leech it, except for Julian, who has incredible memory, leeches it out from all of us. But yeah, this movie is so there's so much there. Like there's a lot of emotion in the film. It's an incredibly hopeful film. It's incredibly tied to the ultimate goodness of people. And it's very earnest in that way. Like for a movie, there's so much going on. I mean, every about 15 seconds, there's like a new thing that moves some plot forward.
Absolutely.
And I think in that style, you can lose a lot of heart, but this movie is all heart. And sometimes quite literally, because, you know, her heart is...
You see it beaten.
You see it beating.
Yeah. And this is a very light movie, but something pretty awful happened earlier this week. The recording of this episode, Rob Reiner and his wife were killed, and I have gone on the deep dive. What did Rob McClure say? I'm playing the movies back on my eyelids.
Yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Rob Reiner films back on my eyelids, and I was really struck by how much of an optimist that guy was in his movies. I've heard a couple people speak about it, and we're talking about how that was kind of his superpower as a director, was that championing goodness is actually like a laser beam into our souls. I also heard Wesley Morris from the New York Times talk about how Rob Reiner maybe doesn't make the best movies, but he makes our favorite movies. And I love that distinction. And I feel like Amelie feels like a Rob Reiner film in many respects.
Yeah,
So,
I love what you're saying about the kind of optimism being kind of what connects a lot of Rob Reiner, because I think as we're talking about him this week, a lot of people are thinking about and talking about like, oh, well, his movies really span a lot of different genres. Like he makes a lot of different kinds of movies, but I do think there's that link to them. I like how you put that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I've said it on the record before, but that if I ever get the opportunity to do like a Sight and Sound top 10 movies, Spinal Tap will definitely be on it.
100%.
Yeah.
We are big Spinal Tap fans.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's
and we
but I mean,
covered Spinal Tap too.
We got around to it.
We did. It feels even more meaningful in hindsight. So
Absolutely.
I'm very glad we ended up covering it in hindsight.
You know what? I was cutting stuff up for our socials, and I was like, have we ever talked about Rob Reiner? And Madeline, you had a really fun point. Rob Reiner, tiramisu. Who knew?
You know, Rob Reiner, his character in Sleepless in Seattle talking about tiramisu actually made tiramisu a lot more popular in the U.S. So we actually indirectly have Rob Reiner to thank for how ubiquitous tiramisu is now.
As someone who always orders tiramisu if it's on the menu, my heartfelt thanks to him, in addition to all the great movies. But rest in peace, Rob Reiner and Michelle Singer.
Yeah.
Yes. And talking about, Sleepless in Seattle and Amelie, this discussion today is kicking off our cycle of Oscar-worthy romantic comedies. And Amelie, I think, really stands out in this genre. So although it's both romantic and comedic, this film doesn't necessarily abide by the typical description that we associate with a rom-com. So what specific traits or moments did you guys pick up on rewatching this that you think differentiate it from others in the genre of the romantic comedy, or what helps it plant more firmly in the genre?
Well, I think it being to the fact of the story following a single character with, there's not really like two characters being set up as lovers or as potential lovers at the start of the story. That's one thing that immediately jumps out to me, but not just that it's a individual, but that it is a single woman who is an only child too. There's something I find like, especially in the only child respect, I find that instantly relatable in the movie. And I think there's something immediately relatable about Amelie as a character and yet very distinct too. And also in like the first 10 minutes of the movie when we're getting her, the setup of her life, there's not really any hint of romance specifically. It's not all too jarring when the possibility comes up, but I feel like
they just say something offhand, as you kind of see her having sex once very early, very briefly. And the narration basically just says like, she's had boyfriends, but I forget the exact.
Hasn't worked out the way she hoped.
Didn't really
that
stick.
type of thing. Yeah.
But I think unlike some of the other movies that we're planning to cover in this cycle, it's not immediately clear that there's going to be like a couples narrative here. It seems to, I mean, the movie's just called Amelie. It's it's only ostensibly the story of her.
It's a character study. I think that's the really interesting distinction about that. I think you're getting to there. It's like,
thank you. Yeah.
I think the kind of matchmaker or the always a bridesmaid, never a bride type of trope is something that you see a lot in kind of more conventional romantic comedies. But the amount of backstory that we get is so deep. And I don't think that that's something that a lot of romantic comedies like start from. Their origins are not really from that.
And even when I think it starts to become a romantic comedy, which is so funny because I think that genre, I think a lot of like American films with that genre, because even when romance is introduced and it's very funny, even when that happens, there's still like BCD storylines. Like you're still following her father and her father trying to find out what these gnomes, like there's still other things going on in Amelie's life because she's set all these things in motion, and then like her heart starts to pull her towards a person. And so it's really interesting because when we do get into some of the tropes of the romantic comedy that totally work, I still as an audience am not only thinking about these two people, I'm still thinking about all the other people that she's touched.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, very well said.
The only other thing I wanted to say that I think is so refreshing watching this movie, especially with romantic comedy in mind, is like the way sex is talked about and introduced. Like, and Madeline, you said this earlier, but like, you know, I think if this movie were American, you wouldn't just see her like having casual sex. She would be lonely, and that's the only thing you saw, and she's never been touched by a person, and like things sometimes need to fit more tight boxes.
Yeah, but where there's this like purity aspect to her.
And that's not it at all. She's had sex. Of course she's had sex. And the sex was fine. And she kind of thought it was funny. And then like the guy she has a crush on is like working at a porn shop and he's doing, you know, I just think it's just not a puritanical society. So it's a very different kind of fun, refreshing thing to see.
Well, going off of something that you said is this movie being international. It's, you know, it's not an American movie, and that like, I mean, it's very obvious that this is a French movie. You know it before you even watch it.
So French. Everybody's so French.
Yeah, but it's when I think of like aggressively French stuff, aggressively French. But like, if there's any movie to me that like embodies like the cliches of like French love story, that movie, it's not this one. It is The Umbrellas of Cherbourg.
I was waiting for someone to bring that one up.
Yeah, which I think is a really great time capsule. But I feel like, you know, when you watch people in like cartoons or whatever create stereotypical depictions of man and woman, you know, falling into each other's arms in France, it's probably somewhere based on that movie.
Totally. But, and Julian, you were talking earlier about considering getting delicatessen for Emilio. And I had mentioned on our Criterion share that my struggle with you was that I actually was not sure which movies on my list you had seen. And that was on my list. And it sounds like you've seen it. So it's a good thing I did not choose that one.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, lucky there. But yeah, but the fact, like the thing about the Amelie being French that I was thinking of was that, well, I listened to Jean-Pierre Jeunet's commentary on the DVD, which he records in English. You know, he with the reservation that he says his English is not very good, but I think
it's great.
He says
10 minutes
a
of it,
lot.
I heard is good.
Like in interviews, he's like, I've only been speaking English for 4 years, and even my mom was like, his English is great. He's got to stop saying that.
And his commentary is very spirited. I highly recommend it for fans of the movie.
I have to.
But something that he says in that commentary is, well, he occasionally, it's not really one coherent statement, but occasionally he just makes these little comments about things that people expect from movies that you don't really have in France. And that, like, one of those details is that you don't have a lot of sound stages in France. And actually, a lot of the interiors for the movie were shot in Germany because they do have more sound stages there, or did at the time of its production. And so, that made it very important to shoot the movie on locations. And that, Jean-Pierre Jeunet being meticulous as he is, he spent a great deal of time location scouting before the movie was actually being shot. And so then, like, when it comes to like things that set it apart from other rom-coms, I mean, I think the Paris setting that's not strange for a romantic movie, but like the sides of Paris that it shows, that feels like a little more in its own lane. And actually, this was a conscious intention on Jean-Pierre Jeunet's part too, to create a love letter to Paris after the movie he worked on previous to this was Alien Resurrection. And he said that he was stuck in LA for 20 months making that. And he wanted to make something that was on location in a city that he loves and where he lived, and maybe still does.
This is like a palate cleanser for him as a filmmaker.
Exactly.
Wow.
And so I feel like, Paris, again, not an uncommon movie setting, but to see like Parisian sex shop or like these particular exteriors, like the grocery store, to really put this lived in spin on the location, that feels like a distinction, if nothing else, as a romantic comedy.
And there's that the fair that he works at that we're at once, and with the
the fun fair with the ghost ride.
Yeah, the amusement park.
Yeah, the ghost ride. Like I was like, whoa, this, like you.
We should have started the episode like that.
I wanted to ask you guys too. I was trying to remember about voiceover and narration as being like a driving force in romantic comedies, more traditional romantic comedies. That was something that jumped out to me. It was like, there is this omniscient presence. And I feel like sometimes that undercuts what a rom-com tries to do, which is it tries to manufacture this feeling of spontaneity and the deterministic feel that this movie has. It just feels like it's spiraling towards a known conclusion.
Yeah.
Also feels unique.
Yeah.
That's
well, the
so
spontaneity,
well said.
that's a great point to bring up, because this movie lives on spontaneity.
It does,
Yeah.
but it also kind of balances it with
Yes,
this feeling that there's...
That it's like a story that you're being told.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
There's
a
a
tale as old as
narrator.
time or something.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. As opposed to a story without narration, a romantic comedy without narration, which is you're going to get lost in the reality of what's going on. And whoa, it's like I'm watching two real people fall in love in real time, and there's no fourth wall. But exactly, when you have that this omniscient narrator, you're being told a fairy tale, basically.
Yeah. You know that this perfume stopper rolling across the bathroom floor is going to lead to something important.
Yeah.
As opposed to, discovering that with the protagonist.
Absolutely.
Can I just say, Lord, forgive me. This is the best use of the death of Our Lady, Princess Diana, I have ever seen. I
Let's
have to
go.
tell you,
100%.
completely forgot that her tragic death is the inciting incident of the movie. No way did I remember that.
So I didn't either, but I remember that. That was a very formative tragedy.
Yes.
That I clearly remember the car crash, the awful paparazzi pictures. Yeah, I had a question a little later about very time-specific things, but I'm glad you brought that up because I 100% agree. It's so interesting how this movie foregrounds that.
Fully, because if you were sentient in 97 when she died, it was that, and then like September 11th, it was like this tragedy that shook the world. I remember going to school and our teachers, we had like vigils, like that's all we talked about, and it was so formative for everybody. It was so earth-stopping. I mean, this movie must have been made like filmed like only a few years after, because it was released 4 years later. So like you really go, man, he had the foresight to just immediately include this thing.
Yeah.
It's almost like he saw into the future. He was like, this will define kind of a culture. And like immediately I'm going to put that in my movie.
It's also the perfect environment for Amelie to start doing her work.
Yeah.
Because it's a world that has been rocked by tragedy and everybody's vibration is lower.
Yeah.
And so she's there
to
spice things up. I think it's like a galaxy brain touch that this movie has.
That's a great point. Well, we're talking a lot about little details in this film now. And I mean, it's, like little details amount to a lot in it. I mean, there's a lot of time devoted on like specific things, but one thing of emphasis in Amelie and it's, I really love how the movie does this, is all the little like habits and tics that each character of significance has. I think we learn the most about Amelie herself, but it's not just her. It's like, you learn about her parents and the people she works with, even people who are only there for like a second. And so what do you all think is like the meaning and effect of these touches, pun intended, as well as the film's general attention to these seemingly trivial details?
On one of the interviews that I listened to with Jean-Pierre Jeunet, he was talking about how a lot of the things that people like in this movie and things that people dislike in this movie are things that he himself likes and dislikes.
Yeah.
I think in particular, Amelie's parents. The dad likes, cleaning out his toolbox and then vacuuming it and then putting things back together. And the mom likes to do the same thing with the purse. And then, they're poony fingers. These are all things that Jean-Pierre Jeunet himself likes. So I'm sure there's deeper meaning to this. But I also think he is somebody that has spoken about how for years he was kind of collecting these stories.
Yeah.
Feels
for
that
this
way.
entire film. How these are a lot of things that he experienced or stories that he heard from other people, and they're based on real life. And I kind of think the likes and dislikes are just like another thing in that toolbox.
I'm so glad you said that because
Yeah.
when I was watching it, I was like, this would take a lifetime to write because every single 10 seconds, there's something interesting being said. Amelie is taking a blind man down the street and being his eyes for him and describing every single thing she sees.
That scene is
It's so beautiful. And it's 8 seconds long. And then on to the next thing. Her neighbor has bones like glass, but he like is painting this woman who's drinking from a water glass. And it's really just Amelie. And like there's the grocery stores. The grocery store clerk is really awful to the other guy. It's not his son.
Yeah, his
employee.
One employee.
Yes. It's like that guy who's being bullied goes to the neighbor's house with the bones like glass and gives him groceries, but they're boring groceries. They're good groceries disguised as boring groceries. So like inside an artichoke is like caviar. And you're like every detail. And each scene is so short. And you're just basically what I'm trying to say is I was watching the movie and just thinking, this would take like 20 years to put together. And you kind of have to use every good story you've ever heard.
And that's pretty much his exact process.
And when you're done with a movie like this, you kind of have to go, okay, I've used every story for the past 40 years. And now I have to start again with like new ideas because all of my ideas are in this movie.
Yeah.
Can I just ask really quick? Did you feel in any way like that when you were working on We Strangers?
You know what's funny? What I'll say is I do the same thing where I write all these little scenes and snippets and things. But the sad part, or maybe the good part, is like I put a ton of ideas in there, but so many ideas didn't make it or would leave a draft or whatever. Because yes, like my debut film, which took 10 years to put together, is a kind of tight, shorter film. And it used to have a ton, everything, every idea, every tiny thing. And then slowly you go, because my movie does not have the scope Amelie has. I was like, it doesn't really work in the story. And then they would get pulled out and pulled out and pulled out. So I have saved some. But the joy of making Amelie, getting to use all of your best stuff would be really great. But then I think finishing the movie and then being like, oh, what's my next thing? What was his next movie after this?
A very long engagement.
Oh, yeah. Which I never saw, but I heard good things about.
Yeah, same.
I just want to say there's a scene in We Strangers that involves plates and like dining ware that felt a lot like something you might see in Amelie. I'm just going to put that out there.
What a compliment. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Something happened and immediately I was like, oh man, I want good things for these characters threefold more than I did before this happened. I even remember it being in the theater. It felt like everyone had a chance to like take a breath. They were like, okay, people are going to be okay.
Fun. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. People are going to be okay. Yeah. Yeah. I felt a little bit of Amelie in that moment or retroactively. So yeah.
Similar to Amelie, like I feel like I had so many things I wanted that were more like that film, like so many more kind of things that weren't directly related to the plot, but very directly related to the characters that I wanted to have in that film. And then the truth of like making a movie is like so many things happen that aren't your control and you just have to roll with it. And that's okay. But yeah, I love that stuff. I mean, Amelie is full of that. And it makes you care about the characters. Like every person even around Amelie's character, like the whole gang in the cafe makes you care about her more because you care about her world so much, you know?
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Oh.
Yeah. I love that. The other point I wanted to bring up based on your question, there was a line in this movie that really stuck out, which is when Amelie goes to the grocer's mother to try to get the name of the past tenant. And the mother and the husband, they're going back and forth, and he's like a retired metro worker and he's punching holes in her plants.
Yes.
There's a great line that he says with a big smile on his face. We all need a way to relax. And that to me felt like the thesis about the vibe of this movie. Is that this movie is trying to give you permission to let any sensory thing bring you closer into the story. There's also that moment when after Amelie gives the box back to the gentleman and the narration is like, she felt this incredible feeling of harmony. And I love the word harmony because harmony implies that a bunch of different things are working together to create something greater than the whole. And that to me is like the senses. And they even say it's the soft light, it's the scent in the air, it's the quiet murmur of the city. So you've got visuals, you've got smell, you've got sound, and it's part of the vibe. And it wants you, the viewer, to be like, feel whatever you feel because this movie loves that you feel.
Whoa, wow.
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. You're right. I think that's the ineffable thing, which is it's so much feeling. It's so much sensory feeling. Like you feel like you're there. You feel like you can touch the things. One line that stuck out to me I loved was the failed, I say in quotes, writer who sits at the cafe when it's really foggy weather outside, which like every scene, for some reason it's foggy, right? I don't know why, but it is that day. And the writer says, we pass the day to forget about how the day passes.
Oh, yes.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
I remember
he
that.
just says that. And that was another, I was like, he probably wrote down that line in his journal like 2 years ago. And finally gets to slap it into this guy's mouth. And how satisfying.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Another line I was thinking about that I think loops back into Julian, your question is when they're talking about the things that Amelie likes, they show her in a movie theater.
Yes.
And one of the things that she says is, I like noticing the details that no one else does.
Totally.
That's a moment that I think speaks to all of us very, very personally.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also love the other thing where she says, I like to turn around.
Yeah.
Anu's doing it
And
right
look
now.
at people's faces in the dark.
Exactly. And that right there is also like a thesis statement on her as a person. She's more interested in the joy that other people are experiencing, at least initially. The movie is about her coming to understand that she can keep some of that for herself. But I love that. I love that it's about movies.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Even if only for that one scene, but still. And she also dislikes the fact that people driving in old movies don't look at the road.
I mean,
same.
I feel that.
Same. So frustrating.
But then also, I think that the emphasis on these little details, because this is a character who's isolated and has to, at first at least, and has to take in a lot of the world by observation, that like a lot of these things are the most immediate experiences that she has that she can like understand. But also when you're looking at other people, like some of the first details you notice about them that like, Gina, her coworker, likes to crack her knuckles, or that like Joseph, the jealous guy at the cafe, likes to pop bubble wrap, or that Amelie herself likes to crack the crust of creme brulees, or cremes brulee, excuse me.
Oh,
but
where is the plural in that?
I feel more like it's that than the other. But all of these things, it's just kind of, there's the sense of immediacy too, that these could be the first things you notice about another person or about yourself.
Yeah. I love that.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, I think it's about time that we get into our comparison corner. Does anybody have a comp to another movie or TV show or just piece of media that they want to begin this with?
I could kick this off.
Yeah.
Because of when Amelie and Nino first see each other, and it talks about how, when Amelie didn't have any friends, Nino had too many. And you see them both as children, and you see them also both like, I don't know if it's flashlights or like mirrors. They're like signaling outside their windows. That reminded me a lot of Moonrise Kingdom.
Yeah.
With these two kids that are like lonely or like othered in some way, that obviously they don't come together in this movie as children. They come together as adults.
Yeah.
But just someone feeling so isolated, knowing that there must be somebody else out there that can relate to that.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a great.
I really
yeah,
love that.
Yeah, and if there's a Wes Anderson movie to specifically point out in relation to this one, yeah, that's a great one.
Thank you.
Of course. Watching Amelie, I mean, something I know about Jean-Pierre Jeunet that I can't ignore is that Delicatessen is very much inspired by Terry Gilliam's movie Brazil. And I don't think, this is only brief, there's not that much about Amelie that I think correlates to Brazil specifically, but just the fact that the inciting incident of the film is an accident and that there's also a misgiving relating to a character's name or a mistake relating to it. And like in Brazil, it's Buttle and Tuttle. In this, it's Bradoto or Bratodo.
Oh, yeah.
But then
like Toto.
Yeah, the more robust comparison that I thought of this time watching Amelie was to a movie that we've covered on this podcast before and all really enjoyed, which is Clueless.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, where it's another movie about an only child raised by
Wanting
a
to do
single
good.
father,
Yeah.
wanting to do good, and also like orchestrating things amongst people she knows, not necessarily behind their backs, but wanting to kind of be the
force
for good.
Yeah.
And maybe at the beginning of the movie, like her idea about why she's doing it is different from what it becomes, but also like having, to confront her own sense of isolation and then taking the little steps to work towards someone who has been there from the beginning for her. So that's what I noticed.
Yeah.
Also a movie that has kind of a similar kinetic energy to it.
For sure.
Yeah.
Shout out Amy Heckerling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that movie holds up amazingly.
Certainly does.
I can go next.
Yeah.
I feel like I could go for a more highfalutin pick here, but I'm going to go with my gut, and I'm choosing George Miller's Babe. I feel like
love Babe.
I do too. I feel like what Amelie is for adults is what Babe is to younger children in a lot of ways, because like they're both movies that center around these main protagonists, very much feel like outcasts, but there's this kind of change that they bring to the world around them. There's like a lot of joy and levity, I think, that people gain because this main character has this outlook. And I think both movies also have like a real lightness of touch. And the other thing I like is I think that both movies acknowledge the darkness that also is in the world. Like, I think that's something that both movies handle really nicely. And I think also this just kind of deeper message about sometimes life has this way of kind of putting you in a box and dictating what you can do and how much you can feel, but a childlike innocence and a good heart and a little bit of courage with the help of some friends allows joy to spread and for people to find purpose and for happiness to also come to you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Nice.
So beautiful.
Love that.
I think as I'm hearing you, when you talk about that, it's like this movie has a lot of adult things in it, but it shares a lot of DNA with good kids movies. And I mean that in a great compliment, because what you try to teach young kids is like, there's good in the world and you should be good and you will be rewarded. There's always going to be sadness and pain and things will not be fair, but you will be rewarded if you are kind and good. And that's what this film is completely about, and that's really good. Like that's what movies should do.
Yeah, and to the point you're making, Jean-Pierre Jeunet actually said that because the movie was rated differently in France, that a lot of kids saw it and there was no issue with the sexual content or anything, that they just had a great time and got a lot out of the movie too.
I always have felt that, like, as a filmmaker, if you make a movie that a kid will see, before they're 10, it will completely shape who they are. And it doesn't mean you make a kids movie. It just means like, you know, if you saw Game of Thrones before you were 10, if you saw anything that was life-changing, it will shape the person you will become. And that's actually how you can like change the world. Like my partner is like, I mean, the reason like, you know, Elon Musk is the way he is, he's probably saw Star Wars and he wants to go to space. You know what I mean? And like good and bad, you know?
No.
And like,
maybe not too far off.
I know. And so Amelie, in that way, it's like really beautiful for kids to see, even though I think sometimes like kids movies in quotes don't get the same like cinematic reverie that adult movies do. But I don't think I understood the assignment. So my relation is I see similarities between this movie and Gaslight. When she when Amelie
I think you might have got this. Go for it.
I don't think I understood. It was just when Amelie, I'm like, what is this long con she's doing in the grocer's house? And over multiple scenes, over a long time, she's slowly making this person think that they are going crazy to the point where at the end of the long con, he calls his mom for help, but it goes straight to the psychiatric hotline. It's so diabolical.
It actually is. No, I love that you went there with this.
Amelie in a different timeline could be a criminal mastermind.
Absolutely.
But she chooses to use her skills altruistically most of the time.
Yeah.
And I want to use this opportunity to ask either you guys or listeners, please write to us at Sleepless Cinematic Pod, because ever since I rewatched this movie 2 days ago, it has been really bugging me that there is another movie or TV show or play that I have seen within the last couple of years where someone does switch out someone else's shoes for one size down to make them feel like they're going crazy, and I cannot remember what it is.
I'm with you, and I don't have it right now, but I remember this.
It's something that I have seen, not necessarily in relation to this, and it's driving me nuts. So if you guys don't know it, but if somebody that's listening knows it, please write to us or DM us, because it's really
bothering me right now too, and it might bother me for the rest of our conversation, but that's okay.
I'm sorry to bring that back up, but as soon as we talked about her making the grocer think he was going insane, I was like, well, this is my in on this. Please, someone help.
Oh, fully. Cool. And also, it's such a great thing because, like, when you really think about it, if you went to go put your shoes on and they didn't fit anymore, that would be so confusing.
Yeah.
I feel the way this man feels just when like I wash my jeans and suddenly they don't fit anymore. I'm like, I'm going insane, or I'm like a different size than I was 2 days ago. And so shoes would really mess me up.
That actually did happen to me. These kind of like cheap sandals that like you go in and outside, the like heat, I left them out in the sun and the heat shrunk them. And so they were like the size of my hand, but...
Like, were these gloves the whole time?
Yeah. Oh, I don't think we mentioned yet that one of Amelie's dad's quirks is that he wears socks under his sandals.
Just about to say
and he's judged harshly for that.
Yeah, he doesn't like when people judge
on the
him.
platform, the train platform. Yeah.
I forgot. Oh my God.
It's like, just let the guy walk.
Yeah.
Fully, and he likes stripping wallpaper. Anyway, I was like, that's actually the worst.
Well, someone's got to like it.
It takes all kinds, right?
Yeah.
Well, I'll jump in with this. I love how out of time Amelie feels. Like, there are a few signposts here and there, but so much of what takes place could really be happening in this film's past, present, or future. And I was curious to ask you all if there were any era specific or maybe some non-era specific details that caught your eye or stuck out to you as being particularly effective within the narrative because of when it signified like its existence.
Well, you say within the narrative, which is interesting because I actually think a lot of details of how the narrative is presented situate it pretty clearly in 2001. And that,
even though it's set in 1997.
Right. But it's still, there's some like, yes. And I am conscious that it's like both a short period of time, but there is something about this film that feels a little more new millennium to me than late 90s. And it's the way that it blends all of the practical elements with CGI.
Oh, wow.
And I mean, I'm glad for a lot of reasons to have listened to the commentary, but there were some things that Jean-Pierre Jeunet pointed out in that commentary that I genuinely would have missed had I not known. And it's like these really little details, like the goldfish when
suicide.
At least when it's dumped into the stream, that's CGI. Wow. It may be the entire goldfish is CGI.
I think the entire goldfish scene, because he says something like it's very hard to train a goldfish.
Right.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, yeah. And in his French accent, it is very hard to direct a goldfish, something like that. But there was that, and also there's a scene where like Amelie has just cooked dinner, and there's steam rising from her pasta that is computer generated. You wouldn't even know if you're not looking for it. And I mean, I guess something that is a little easier to pick up on, even though it blends in so nicely, is all the color grading in the movie.
Oh, definitely.
That, especially all the greens in the train stations. That was something that Jean-Pierre Jeunet pointed out quite a lot. And then there are all these special effects too that are, I think they're done really well, but it's no surprise that they're digital, whether it be Amelie's racing heart when she sees Nino, or the moment that Anu you mentioned, her turning into a puddle,
right,
her turning into a puddle. That's a great example. Also, when Nino finally spots that mystery man he's been keeping an eye on in the photo booth, and then like very late in the movie when Amelie is fantasizing about Nino and then imagines him brushing the bead curtain by her kitchen when it actually rustles. Like, the way that the image is superimposed.
They didn't just send the cat through.
Wow.
But like the superimposition there, like that felt very...
Oh, the superimposed,
yes. Those details, I think, really stand out as New Millennium details to me. I know CGI is not strictly associated with that, but Amelie is one of a few movies that I've seen recently that I almost think are like from the early 2000s that I almost think feel more 21st century than a lot of things that have come out after. Like some others that
from
I think
like a formal filmmaking perspective.
Right. And the way that they employ digital technology. I get what you mean about there being timeless elements to this story too, but I think there are some details that situate it very firmly in its time and that I think have aged well too.
I see all of these points and I think they make a lot of sense, but I think that these do root it in the year that it was made. But Emilio, I think that maybe what you were getting at, or at least how I interpreted it, is where the time in which this film is set.
Yeah.
Where it really, other than the Princess Diana stuff, which I think is the most effective way this film sets its time. Other than that, this really could be set in most of the 20th century, I think.
Yeah, that was kind of where I was going with this too, is there are a couple very specific things, but I think the vibe of this film felt very timeless.
Yeah.
I felt like so many of the important things that take place in the movie almost feel like they could be happening in the 1950s, even like the key in the door. It's like we've talked about details in other films that were purposefully meant to obscure when things, have happened or when things are supposed to take place. But I love how this movie, it's very playful with it. Like I think of like the payphones, the use of payphones in this.
Yeah. Great use of
really fun.
Yeah, some of the best. Yes.
Yeah.
That's true. Honestly, the payphones, like as salient as they are in the movie, I didn't really think of them as much as an era-specific thing.
Another thing in that similar vein is the gnome. It's Polaroids.
Yeah, true.
It's not like from there was the camera place in my town was called Camera Corner. It's still open. So I always think Camera Corner, and I'm like, that's not a chain, so that doesn't mean anything to anybody. But it's not something you would print at Camera Corner or like CVS or whatever. Like they're all Polaroids.
Shout out Camera Corner, by the way, for sticking around. That's awesome.
They're still kicking
some business. But it's true. It's like, I think every obstacle and every way you solve the obstacle requires a person to physically go somewhere or make a call from a payphone. There's no technology in the movie. So everything needs to be done person to person. And also that's why miscommunications happen. It's kind of like, of course, when cell phones were introduced, this is an age-old thing, but it like introduced a new set of problems because obstacles that used to be obstacles in movies were no longer obstacles anymore. And
right.
now
Absolutely.
we're seeing how do you dramatize a world that is constantly on screens? But I think this was kind of the last gasp of it. And I feel like this movie really embraces physical connection, having to physically go places, mail,
Totally.
lost mail. Like you're right that like, besides obviously the inciting incident, like could this movie have taken place in the 60s? Yeah, I mean, I guess she's on there's like a moped or whatever, but all that stuff existed then.
Yeah, it's like maybe the vehicles are
a different
more
old
modern.
If it's
Yeah.
the 60s, maybe it's like the Kennedy assassination or something that does that.
Yeah. Or
Exactly.
the French equivalent. But yes, it's a
Yeah.
great point. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's very small
yeah.
town, kind of rural way of living, which is funny because like the thing I was thinking of is I'm watching a movie where everyone has one job or maybe not a job and is living comfortably. Do you know what I mean? Like she's living
Absolutely.
comfortable and she's a waitress.
Yeah, she doesn't even have a roommate.
No, she lives
Yeah.
alone. She's a waitress. The only person that has a hustle, that has two jobs, is Nino. Nino works at the sex shop,
Yeah.
and then he once a week goes and is like a ghost.
Only on Wednesdays.
He's a ghost at the fun fair or whatever. It's like that's how
That seems like something he almost like volunteers.
Exactly. I'm like, everybody's living. The glass man's living on whatever the equivalent of Social Security is. Everyone's kind of like doing okay with everyone has free time is what I'm trying to say. And they're working their like they're 9 to 2s. And I was like, this is a good life. This is like the great shenanigans you can get up to when you're not doing like a 24/7 hustle.
Great point.
And all these people also manage to leave early from their jobs all the time. Like Nino keeps being able to do this, but also Georgette does this at least once.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Her job is to sell cigarettes at the cafe. That's all she does.
Like it is Paris.
Yeah.
I imagine they sell a lot of
I
cigarettes.
think you only see her making like one sale in the movie.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
And she's like got a
amazing.
salaried position.
Yeah.
She's got benefits.
Pension. And you're like,
Yeah.
Well,
But also
she also sells the lotto tickets.
Yeah,
that's
true,
true. That's
true.
true. That's true.
That's
But then-
probably, government
most of the
funded
income.
there.
Well, other details I thought about, actually going back to this topic of video in the movie, that like specifically the video camera that Raymond Dufayel has pointing out of his window. I mean, at first we just see it and we know it's loaded with tape, so that situates it somewhere in its time. But then the actual video that he makes for Amelie for the end of the
It's like
movie.
4K high def.
But it still looks very of that time. It made me think a lot of the like bamboozled aesthetic.
Sure, a
Yeah.
little bit, yeah.
Of mini
Yeah.
DV, and so like that, it also felt a lot like video art.
Yeah. That reminded me a little bit
Yeah.
of Sex, Lies, and Videotape. There's
Still need to
a
see it.
very similar scene in Sex, Lies, and Videotape,
Yeah.
and then like a reveal later. So
Yeah. Also, I mean, just like the design of Amelie's TV too. That's pretty
Yeah.
era specific.
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but it's not also like something that I like notice when I look for it. It's not the first thing that jumps out to me in that scene.
And the fact that she always has a tape ready to record on
Yeah.
too. I feel like that was also
Yeah.
at the time kind of always having a
Yeah.
tape.
There you
And
go.
Joseph in the cafe with his tape recorder.
Absolutely, good point.
Yeah.
We're talking about all these notable small details. I mean, as has been stated time and time again, this movie is almost entirely small details.
Yeah.
But are there any that we want to shout out in particular?
Well,
I mean, we have to talk about the Glass Man because Jean-Pierre Jeunet mentions
Yes.
on the commentary about how he's a big M. Night Shyamalan fan, but I think he had conceived of this before seeing Unbreakable. And then he watches Unbreakable and he's kind of like bummed out, I think a little bit, because he's like, oh no, I also like have this idea like ready to go.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, great minds thinking alike.
Insane.
Well,
Wow.
also like the way that we get these entire stories about people from like little objects that they have makes me think a lot of the touch sense that the Bruce Willis character has in Unbreakable.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems more like coincidence, but an uncanny one.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love the M. Night Shyamalan Jeunet like pipeline there.
Yeah, that's really cool. No, thank you, Madeline, for bringing that up. I noted that listening to the commentary too.
One of the very few details that I caught in the like 6 minutes of the commentary that I got to listen to
Mhm.
was that Audrey Tautou did not know how to skip stones,
Yeah, yeah.
and that this is something that
she
she
doesn't
learned.
have the ricochet.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So she
Wow.
learned. I don't know if she had a skipping stones expert that came and spent a couple weeks of time with her. I don't know if that was what it was, but she learned how to do it for the movie. So shout out to you, Audrey Tautou, for some realism on that front.
Yeah. Well, speaking actually of Audrey Tautou's performance in the movie, I mean, we talked a lot about all of the little character habits and tics that are mentioned, but there is something I noticed that seems almost necessary to the integrity of the film that it's not mentioned, and yet it is abundant, which is how much she looks into the camera.
There is that.
Yeah.
There's a breaking of the fourth wall there. Yeah.
Amelie, like, you could say that she does or does not know that she's in a movie, but what I feel more comfortable saying from all that is that it reflects Amelie's sense of knowing her story matters.
Yeah.
And that, well, I mean, you know, if we're going to talk about this being an influence to things, I don't know that this was directly on the mind of Phoebe Waller-Bridge conceiving of Fleabag.
I thought of Fleabag in the biggest way.
Yeah.
Biggest way. Thank you for bringing that
Yeah,
up.
it feels very proto-Fleabag.
Even
Yeah.
the hair, having like an iconic look, even, you know.
Oh,
Totally.
oh my God, the hair. Yeah.
Yep.
That's
hair.
just hitting me now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One that I liked is when she's watching like her own kind of fantasized funeral on the television.
Oh.
And they call her godmother of outcasts, Madonna of the unloved, but in like a kind of loving way. They're kind of, this whole thing is like, oh, you know, yes, she is passed tragically young, but she did so much good for people. She was Madonna of the outcasts, and I thought that was really beautiful, even if it was, you know, in what's supposed to be a very tragic possibility.
Yeah. Yeah, the way this movie
I
depicts
love that.
catastrophizing, I think, is really expert too.
Yeah, I'd say so
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
There's one moment that cracked me up in the biggest way, which is in the first 10, 15 minutes of this movie, when you're getting all the backstory of Amelie as a young girl. She is chastised unfairly and kind of rudely by her neighbor for taking pictures and supposedly causing an accident.
Yeah.
And her revenge on him
Oh, yeah.
is one of the funniest things.
It's so good.
It is. I love that she's listening to the radio broadcast
So she can time it just right.
perfectly, and the actor who plays that neighbor too is losing his shit in the best way. His
little hop at one point is really
funny.
great.
I was also literally wrote that down to talk about that. It was so well done. That little girl was such a good actor. It was just,
She's great.
you know, guys, I'm realizing something that I feel like I don't think I understood till just now for some reason. At the end of the movie, when Nino finally comes to her door and she's afraid to open the door, right? And then he slips a note and he says, "I'll be right back," or something. And then like the glass man kind of like encourages her through his video, but she runs to the window to see that if he's gone, and then she like runs and opens the door. Was that Nino's plan the whole time? That he was going to say, "I'll be back," and then he just stays there? Because I know they're always strategizing, and that's the issue. But
Yeah.
is that the plan?
I interpreted it that way.
Okay,
That
okay.
he'd been moved along many times. He kind of knew at some
Mhm.
point that she was doing this to him, and that he's like, "I got one of these up my sleeve too, girl." And
Okay, love that. Yes.
yeah.
Great. Thank you. I was like, all right.
No,
The
all good.
detail I loved was kind of a major detail that then played out in such a funny way. But the fact that Nino goes through the trash of a photo booth and reassembles the pictures in that photo book, and that's kind of his art project, right? In any other movie, that would just be like a twee detail, right? It wouldn't be like a big thing. This photo book comes back he finds ways to make this make sense in so many different ways, right? It's the thing that needs
The
to
payoff is so
absolutely.
strong.
It's the thing that needs to be
Yes.
brought back. It's the way that she communicates to him. It's the repairman reveal of like, who is this mystery man who gets this photo taken? It's the fact that, okay, we leave Amelie, we're with Nino falling asleep, and the photo comes to life and starts talking to him. Like, it's such an interesting thing that I just think if any other filmmaker would ever even think of something like that, I just feel like he's found like 5 different ways to make that part of the story, which I thought was so cool. Because like for me, I'd be like,
Yeah.
I have this cool idea. This character does this kind of weird thing, and I don't think I'd be able to assemble it in that many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also love the shot when there's just so much in this one shot when Nino is going after the mystery man and drops his scrapbook, but then the camera pans and then Amelie's running up to catch it.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of Jean-Pierre Jeunet's favorite shots in the movie too.
While I was watching it, I was trying to remember how far back that shot went.
Yeah.
Just from a blocking perspective, like where were these actors to pull this off? I love that you brought up that moment. That was great.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also just the scrapbook in general.
Yeah. I want to point out just one other quick thing, which is cachet came up earlier when we were talking about video cameras. Okay. There was another Michael Haneke movie that came up and it just jumped out to me briefly. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, I want to see these two as a double feature, which is The Piano Teacher.
Oh! I thought you were going to say Cachet and Amelie.
Cachet, yes. Cachet, yes. There's some of that, the kind of voyeurism. And I actually realized, I was like, not to ruin that movie, but the relationship between the two characters that utilize that video camera the most are kind of similar to what you see happen in Cachet. There's like something going on there. But to me, it was like the moment she walked into the sex shop, I was like, oh, right, this happens in The Piano Teacher too. And I don't know what it was, but like the more I thought about it, I want to see these movies back to back because they're also character studies about these very lonely women, but like that go in such different directions.
Aren't they the same year too?
Thank you very much. I was going to say that too.
Oh, that's such a good double feature. Wow.
Wow. I really need to see The Piano Teacher.
That one's going to make your head fucking spin, by the way. Yeah. You're like Amelie, and then
have a lot to say after
Yeah, you will.
I think.
Maybe someday we'll do it on the mic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But
definitely.
Well, I'm excited. Last little detail on my end. I'm surprised a little bit that this hasn't come up yet, but Zorro.
Oh, yeah. I didn't really understand why she loves Zorro so much, but I was like, okay.
It's that fantastical element, her living in her imagination.
Yeah.
Like you said, Anu, earlier, maybe she saw this movie before she was 10. And
yes, and she's just
and
a
it
little
left
Zorro.
an imprint.
Totally.
Maybe I'm not up to speed on like the legacy of the character, but it doesn't begin with the Antonio Banderas portrayal, right?
No, there was an older film, and there, it's a kind of a story as old as time.
But it's funny because that Zorro moment, Jean-Pierre Jeunet, like the moment where she does the Z in the door. Yeah. He said in a few different interviews that that's the one thing that he would consider cutting.
I agree.
That he doesn't actually
I agree.
like it.
I was like, when I saw that, I was like, this doesn't feel connected to the movie. And if you're going to do that, then do an A. Why a Z? It didn't feel.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this note.
That's a good angle.
That one shot. It's one shot of literally thousands of brilliant shots.
I was going to say, if your hit rate is that good,
then you're a genius.
Like
then you're
99.9%.
Yes.
Yeah.
But everything felt so connected. It was about we're living and seeing things for her. It's not just like for audience satisfaction. And I think that was why I bumped on it.
But something else Jean-Pierre Jeunet said in relation to that moment that I respect is that, like he said, yes, he would cut it, but he also doesn't believe in editing movies further once they're out in the world.
Yeah. And so he's like, he's not going to do it now.
Right.
There's going to be no like director's cut. Cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Respect.
Yeah. You got to just be like, that's who I was then. That's what the thing was. And then off it goes.
I love that.
Yeah.
And on that note, why don't we jump into Unlikely Shared Universe? Does anybody want to start?
Yeah. Mine will be quick. I can get this going. So we've said a little bit about this man, Joseph, who is a regular at we haven't even said the name of the cafe yet, but a regular at the Café des Deux Moulins.
Yeah, the two windmills, yeah.
Yes, at which Amelie works. And we learn a little bit about him and how he operates in terms of love life, and also with, his bubble wrap and his tape recorder. But we don't know that much about him. And let's say that maybe like he, at this point in time, has retired from his past as a performer at circuses and carnivals and things of that sort as a human cannonball. And that he's made some good cash with that gig, and he's kind of resting on his laurels for a little bit. But then eventually falls on some kind of hard times, and then the world of a circus performer is not as lucrative as it once was, and has to go into a sort of hiding in a mountain commune, and live with a bunch of other curious characters of some sort. But then he finds he's able to sustain himself pretty consistently in that way of living, and sees the plot become a little bit more interesting when a young man joins this community who is seeking revenge for the maiming of his father in an accident when he was much younger. Yeah, let's also say that this character Joseph, like, we don't know his last name in Amelie, but that his last name would happen to be Flacasse, Joseph Flacasse, and that this is the life that he lives after the events of this film.
Oh man, you've got me.
Yeah,
in the biggest way.
I kind of figured that this was a bit of a tough movie to do Unlikely Shared Universe for, but that this is an actor I've seen in other things, and I mentioned the name of this movie earlier in this episode, so I guess that's about as low-hanging as it's going to be. But do you want to take a crack at it?
I don't think I have this. You might say it, and I might be like, oh, of course, but I don't have it right now.
It's Micmacs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. See what I mean?
Fair enough. Yeah.
It's another Jean-Pierre Jeunet movie. The actor who plays Joseph is Dominique Pinon, who is, I think he's in every Jean-Pierre Jeunet film.
Interesting.
Yeah, he's a regular with him. He's in Delicatessen too. He's the main character in that movie. Yeah, I mean, he has one of those faces that you don't forget after you see it.
100%. He's got one of those like Safdie brothers faces where you're like, this guy has done time, or like,
fully.
Yeah.
It's like you took a person, you kind of smushed it. Like his face and his body. And when he stands and he like kind of almost fights that writer, you're like, oh, your proportions are all confusing. Also, I have to
100%.
just say, the only kind of like fucked up thing Amelie does is
let's go there. Let's do it.
She knows this dude is like an abuser. Like, he's there every day making Gina's life absolute hell. And she's like, the best way to get him off of her is to sick him and his like sick brain onto the other woman, like at the point. And it's like, of course it's going to go bad. And it does. And I was like,
yes.
Amelie, that's messed up.
She whiffed on that one. Yeah, I think she was feeling herself a little too much. And she's like, I'm gonna play Cupid on this one, and you win some and you lose some, even if you're Amelie when it comes to this type of thing.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll jump in with mine then. So when we meet Nino, we see that he's a sweet-natured guy working odd jobs around France. There's not a whole lot about him that we know, but we do see that he has an urge to scrounge, so to speak. He gets on the ground and looks under things. He also has the skills to creep up on people, as is evidenced by his work in that amusement park ride. And he's also good at following up on his intuition as he successfully navigates his way through Amelie's stratagems and eventually to her apartment. I'm going to say that these skills are genetic and that they find themselves taking hold a few centuries down the line. The child of Amelie and Nino starts a long lineage that brings us all the way to the 23rd century, where a young man from this bloodline is struggling to make ends meet. Because he doesn't have a name, I will use a term coined by past guest and friend of everyone on this call, James Kodianis, to refer to this person going forward as our guy. Reckless and desperate, our guy puts these inherited creeping, tracking, and scrounging skills to work, only this time in the service of theft. He tracks down the apartment of a cab driver named Corbin Dallas and places a picture of the hallway directly outside of Corbin's front door on his head, so that when Corbin looks out his front door peephole to make sure that no one is there, the coast appears to be clear. So when Corbin opens his door to leave for work, he's greeted by our guy, this unnamed member of the future generation descended from Amelie and Nino. And he's holding Corbin up for money. Give me the cash! all this ingenuity is undercut by our guy's lack of how to use the weapon he used to try to intimidate Corbin. And Corbin nonchalantly takes it from our guy, asking if he can keep it. Our guy slowly backs away, insists, "Take it! I don't need it!" before being complimented for his hat. One that I think Amelie would also find inventive and approve of. Does anybody know this movie?
I haven't seen it, but I think I know the answer. Has anyone here seen this and wants to shout it out?
Absolutely no idea.
Is it The Fifth Element?
It is The Fifth Element.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never seen
know
The
this.
Fifth Element.
Oh,
Same here.
Okay, so The Fifth Element is absolutely awesome.
I was able to call this because I just did a cursory look at Matthew Kasowitz's credits earlier today, and then when you were saying something about the 23rd century and like thinking sci-fi, okay, it's probably that.
He's literally in this movie for like 25 seconds, but he is one of the most memorable things that happens in this movie. No joke. It is
nice. Once
you see it, you never forget him. So
I mean, it is brilliant to put a picture of the hallway that you can see from the people is a good move.
Yeah, it's pretty elite.
Very Amelie.
It is.
Yeah,
definitely.
So I actually enlisted my dad to write my unlikely shared universe. I'm going to share one from him this week. My dad has been on our podcast before, and he had all these suggestions for me. And I was like, Dad, I haven't seen any of these movies you're suggesting, so I don't feel like I can write one. So he did that for me. So this is courtesy of my dad, Richard, a former guest of the pod. In Amelie, we meet Joseph, the customer at the Café de la Deux Moulins, whom Amelie fixes up with Georgette, the hypochondriac tobaccoist, who also works at the bar. We know that Joseph is something of an odd duck, but we know nothing about his backstory, which is a good thing. Because if we did know his backstory, Joseph, or Le Curé, as he was once known, might have to kill you. But if you're willing to take the chance, here's the story. In his previous life, Joseph was known as Le Curé, not because of being a parish priest. Instead, it was his nickname when he worked as a hired killer. In that life, Joseph was an enforcer for a crime boss who was also a highly placed official in the Paris police named Jean Supporta. Joseph and his hitman partner carried out a series of murders for Supporta in the early 1980s as they tried to track down a tape that gave evidence that would reveal Supporta's criminal activities. The tape wound up in the possession of a naive young man named Jules, an opera aficionado who had secretly taped the performance of the brilliant diva Cynthia Hawkins, who had never before been recorded. Jules winds up being pursued by two gangs, one being an Asian gang trying to get a hold of his tape of Hawkins, the other being Supporta's men. Jules also becomes involved with a beautiful French-Vietnamese model and her mysterious friend, Serge Gorodish. Gorodish also seems to operate outside the law, but he dedicates himself to trying to save Jules. Spoiler alert for this movie. In a final showdown between the hitmen, Gorish, Supporta, and two honest police detectives, Le Curé seems to be shot by police and then fall down an elevator shaft. The reality, however, is that Joseph had turned police informer, and Gorodish then staged his death on behalf of the authorities. Police then gave Le Curé a new identity as Joseph and sent him up in Montmartre, warning him never to stray too far from the cafe. The cafe being not really an innocent cafe, but actually a witness protection safe house operated by Gorodish for the police.
I love this.
Shout out to your dad.
Yeah.
My dad goes all out on
He shows up and shows out for Unlikely Shared Universe. This is no exception. I do know this movie, but I've not seen this movie. This is a movie called Diva, right?
Yes, that is correct.
What?
Okay.
Which is from 1981.
I've heard about this movie, and I knew that he was in this. This is the only other movie that I know that this actor's been in. So expert level.
Yeah, and this is a movie my dad has been telling me to watch for a while, and actually I own and have not, because he gave it to me, and I've still not gotten around to watching it. So I'm glad that he chose this one. Definitely piques my interest. I mean, this actor has been in other films by Jean-Pierre. I'm now forgetting. Thank you, Jean-Pierre Jeunet. But yes, this is one non-Jean-Pierre Jeunet film that he's also in.
Or a non-Pierre Jeunet. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's always cool to see like an actor that's a regular with a director, but yeah, breaking outside of the mold too. I'm all for that.
Wonderful. Well, I want to take a quick moment. Anu, you're on this call. It has already been stated you and I were friends back in high school, and that high school was a very formative time for us when it came to understanding and realizing a love for movies. I want to shout somebody out who was an old teacher of ours. He was an English teacher who ended up also becoming a teacher of film appreciation at our high school, and was instrumental in, I would say, myself and for you to continue to foster a love for film. His name was Michael Weil, and he passed away earlier this year, just a couple months ago. He was still a very young guy, and it's a little heartbreaking to know that, but I think that wherever he's at right now, I think he would be really happy that this is happening. I really do. He was the kind of guy, he was a very big-hearted person. So I want to shout out that we're thinking about our old teacher.
I was so sad to hear that he passed away. And it just takes one teacher to like foster love in anything. And you might hate math and then you have an incredible math teacher, but we had Mr. Weil, and it was really like you, me, and like two other kids. And like because of him, I definitely feel like we're on this podcast together. And so and he brought us a lot, like he brought us close. And so I'm really sad to hear that, but he touched a lot of people's lives. So shout out to Mr. Weil, and shout out to the teachers who are the reason, the reason many kids can follow their dreams is because like one teacher said that they were smart and capable.
I love that.
Yeah.
100%.
And you're speaking to a group of music teachers right now, and we hear you, and we love that you're saying that.
Yeah.
But yes, wish we could have known you, Mr. Weil.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, that actually is. Wow, that's really nice. Well, we did it. We talked Amelie. Are there any final thoughts that we want to mention about this film?
It's great. And
great movie.
I'm glad that for that to be the first French movie that we've covered on this podcast. We talked about period details, things that set it in its present, but also things that make it timeless. I think that around 25 years after its release, it remains a modern classic. I will put it up there in a pantheon in which I also include Frances Ha of among the greatest movies ever made about being in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
I eagerly look forward to the next time I will watch this movie and keep combing through the little details of it. It's a movie I would love to memorize, as hard as that would be. And
oh my gosh.
Really?
I think you may be up to the task.
It would be a challenge even for me, but I'm up for it. And I also look forward to further exploring the filmography of Jean-Pierre Jeunet. Just, making the note to keep going with his stuff.
My dad did show me a clip from City of Lost Children where this same actor, Dominique Pinon, is in like an elf costume, and there's 3 of him, and there's a very scary like fake Santa scaring a bunch of children. It looks deranged, but
this is the perfect thing to see at this time of the year.
Oh, I'm so in. Yeah.
Very nice. Well, I will just piggyback off that. This was such a delightful rewatch. It has been said already, but I feel like there's something very moving about seeing this movie now that all of us here on this call have done some living in life.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We're in that sweet spot where I think this movie just vibrates really nicely for. It's like we kind of see what's coming, but we also, I think, just remember some of this optimism. And what a great film to just capture all that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. To that point, we all can use a reminder to embrace magic in our lives and to be little Amelies.
100%. Yeah.
It's a great note to end on.
Yeah.
Anu, to say that it has been a delight to have you join us would be such an understatement. I'm just very grateful that you answered the call and that you were down for this. And it is always a joy to see your face and to hear what you have to say about movies. So thank you very, very much from the bottom of my heart for being here.
I live from the bottom of my heart. I just love you so much. You are forever and always. You are my family. And so thank you so much for inviting me into this family. Not only did I have a ball talking about Amelie with you guys, but getting to revisit this wonderful, wonderful woman who sees the great magic of life and wants to connect people. It really reminded me of like our childhoods and like what really reminded me of Emilio when we were young and together, and like how I used to see the world before the world knocks you down. So thank you for this beautiful reminder.
Anu, is there anything that you want to tell our listeners about? Anything you want to plug? Anything you want to put out there? Where can people find you?
You know what? As you mentioned, I just wrote and directed my first movie, We Strangers, starring Kirby Howell-Baptiste and Sarah Goldberg, Tina Lifford, Kara Young, Maria Ditzia, and the whole cast.
They're awesome.
Nice movies. I just saw Kara Young on stage. Yeah, and gruesome playground injuries.
Let me tell you, I really want to see that play. The cast is incredible. The team behind it, including James Kodianis, my frequent collaborator, edited it. And you can rent it on any of your streaming platforms if you so choose.
Do it. All you listeners out there, do it. Make it happen.
I'm so excited to watch this movie.
It's a tight film.
I will be doing it with haste.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Do we want to say really quickly what it is that we're covering next?
Yes. So listeners, as if you know our flow on this podcast, you know that now that we have talked about a movie we've all seen before, we are on the brink of discussing a movie that we will all be coming to for the first time. And for this mise en scene, as we call it, we are staying pretty close in terms of release timing to Amelie. And Amelie, we didn't even say what Oscar it was specifically nominated for, but it was nominated for Best International Feature, unsurprisingly, and Best Original Screenplay. It didn't win either the year it was nominated, but it was nominated for what that is worth. But the movie we're about to cover had a big sweep the year that it was nominated and won 7 awards, and that would be Shakespeare in Love.
Yes.
I've never seen it. Oh, damn.
Neither
we haven't seen it either. For whatever reason, this one has escaped us.
Yes.
Can I share one tidbit about Shakespeare in Love that you might know?
Go for
it. Yes.
But was very fascinating. So I just read Ed Zwick's biography, Hits, Flops, and Other Illusions. There's a chapter about him trying to make Shakespeare in Love. And it is so juicy and so fascinating because Ed Zwick, who did not direct Shakespeare in Love, he was attached to it first, starring Julia Roberts. And there's this incredible scene that he describes of how basically him and Julia Roberts were trying to find the other star of the movie, and she desperately wanted it to be Daniel Day-Lewis. And when they couldn't get Daniel Day-Lewis because he had to do My Left Foot, she tanked all the auditions with all the other incredible actors. And then Harvey Weinstein came in and swooped the movie away from him. So you can see this on YouTube, but the Oscar-winning speech where they're all the producers get up.
Because he was a producer for it.
Because he was a producer. He didn't direct it, but he stayed on as a producer. As they stood up and went, it was agreed that Ed Zwick was going to give the last acceptance, speech. But Harvey Weinstein bullies him, pushes him out of the way, and finishes the speech. And Ed Zwick talks about that moment and how when that happened, he wanted to punch Harvey Weinstein in the face and how he absolutely hated him. And so on YouTube, you can see his face, like he's got a smile plastered on, but he's miserable inside. And it's very, very juicy.
Oh man, that is
this video.
Yeah.
What incredible setup.
Shakespeare in Love.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I love this, Anu, for so many reasons, including this. You are the best. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, in addition to this podcast, you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and now YouTube as well at the handle Sleepless Cinematic Pod. You can contact us via email. We would love to hear from you. Write to us at sleeplesscinematicpod@gmail.com. I am not on Letterboxd. you all are. Anu, are you on Letterboxd?
No, I'm terrified.
It's
Everyone
daunting.
I know is I have my little list in my notes app about my films, and I think about the movies I see.
That's
I write in my
just for you.
journal, and it's just for
Yeah.
me. I just
Yeah.
can't. I don't want
That's
to
okay.
think about
Reasonable.
I don't want to think about what I feel about movies in conversation with other people before I have my opinions about them.
That's why I always
respect.
put my reviews off for far too long and then never log things. But if you want to follow me when I finally do log things, you can do that at Patroness of Cats.
And you can do the same thing for me, Julian, at the handle Julian_Barthold on Letterboxd. If you're listening to us for the first time, thank you for finding us. Or if this is the 5th or 6th or 70th or 75th or even 80th time you've listened to us, thank you so much for sticking with us. We have really grown to love doing this, and it means the world to have our budding listenership grow.
And if you haven't already, we'd ask you, return listener, to please write us a positive review and rate us on your podcast platform of choice. Short and sweet works. This is one of the best ways for new listeners to find us and help our podcast take its next steps. You can also keep it grassroots and tell a friend to tell a friend about the Sleepless Cinematic Podcast. That helps too.
Without Amelie, today's emotions would be the scurf of yesterday's.
That was perfect.
Thank you.